Well, hello. I'm here with Doug to talk about an Oracle breach and many other things. It is Friday, March 28th, 2025. And I guess I might as well start with the Oracle breach. I thought it was the biggest story. So last week, a couple weeks ago, there was a sophisticated supply chain attack that where Oracle got hacked and they exfiltrated 6 million records. And there are two interesting things about this. The first thing is that Oracle is still lying about it. They keep saying, no, we didn't get hacked. And it's complete garbage because the attacker gave sample data to people who then verified the data, saying this is real Oracle data. And they even defaced Oracle's server by uploading a file to their cloud that says, Joe hacked me. and then and Oracle's still saying, no, 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 it's all fake. But the amazing thing is how they got in. They exploited a vulnerability from 2021. Yeah, okay. Well, they exploited a server. I thought it was older than that, but they exploited a server that was running something called Oracle Access Manager that was last updated in 2014. So they haven't updated their server in 11 years. And it's running an old login manager, which takes HTTP requests. And that the vulnerability that they actually exploited is from 2021. So it's amazing. Oracle didn't update their server and they don't even patch their Oracle software. So this is like really embarrassing. And they're still lying and claiming it didn't happen. So, it's it's sort of like the this Signal chat disaster. It just shows that these people are completely asleep at the switch, completely incompetent, doing ridiculous things that they can't possibly make an excuse for.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. Anyway,
So that's a real low-ball attack, sort of like the ones for the cryptocurrency that the North Koreans stole.
yeah,
Uh,
I forget how they did that one. I
that
think it was
was a
social
simple
engineering, right?
password. Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of a,
They
a
they oh
password
they sent
swipe.
somebody a transfer request and he was approving them without being able to see the amount. So this is usually the case. I remember I talked to a guy who is in the instant response business for ransomware, and he says they always get in through a security 101 flaw, like a default password or something. They never use any complicated, sophisticated attack.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those are the easy ones, right?
Yeah,
Try
I
them
mean,
first.
yeah, if you're a criminal, you
Um,
just use the simplest technique that works. Why waste your
yeah.
time? Why get fancy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So, Sam,
mhm.
I got a question for you. White House faith advisor Paula White promises seven supernatural blessings
Oh yeah, I
from
saw that.
God Himself.
I heard that on Rachel
So,
Maddow. Yeah. And she's
yeah,
like Trump's
so,
spiritual advisor. I've talked about her before. She teaches prosperity gospel, where being rich means God loves you, which is that's a heresy that keeps coming back generation after generation
but
for
Sam,
centuries.
Sam, you'll get a supernatural blessing from God Himself, but you got to do it now, act now,
Yeah.
because $1,000 needs to be sent in before Easter.
I remember when I was a kid in the 70s, there was TV evangelists that said, send in your quarters and we will pray over your quarter and you'll get a blessing.
Well, with the Trump, we've got inflation, so now it's a
Yeah,
thousand
that's
dollars.
right. Yeah. Well, to be fair, I remember I read a pre-Vatican II Catholic Bible that someone I knew had, and that thing
Okay.
right in the front, it has this stuff. I thought I should copy and reuse it because it has a whole page of praise for King James, saying God saved us by delivering us King James, the perfect ruler. And I feel like we should totally use that when referring to Trump these days. But anyway, and then it had just a chart of how many days off in purgatory you get for various activities. And I was impressed how donating money to the church gets you like 10 years off in purgatory. Participating in the church ritual gets you like 1 year off in purgatory. And an entire lifetime of reading the Bible and praying for an hour every day gets you like a week off in purgatory. But anyway, they had a whole chart sheet and like calculate how much spiritual benefit you're gaining from each of these activities.
So I should see if I could find this. When Martin Luther um, kind of exposed the Catholic Church.
Oh yeah, they were selling
Um,
indulgences at that time, which was the
yeah,
same
they were
kind of
selling
racket.
indulgence, and
Yeah,
here I found it. And as soon as let's see, as soon as the coin in the coffer rings, another soul from purgatory springs.
yeah, and
And
I
then
yeah,
the response to that was when the coin rings in the pitcher, the Pope becomes
Richard.
even
Yeah.
richer.
Well, you know, there's another thing I like at that time. A nobleman went and he negotiated with his local priest saying, "Can I get an indulgence in advance for a sin I haven't committed yet?" They said, "No, you can't do that." And he said, "Well, I really want it." They said, "Well, they negotiated and they charged him a high price." So he paid the price and then he robbed the guy and stole the money he collected for his indulgences. And at that point, the church and the state were the same. So the indulgence was a defense in court. Nobody could punish him because the indulgence meant it wasn't a crime. So I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, I've heard of that. That's
Yeah.
pretty good. Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right, what's your next story?
and I got just a few politics ones. So Trump administration scientists are sounding the alarm because the National Institute of Health has now asked everyone to report what research they're doing that uses mRNA technology. And they have all been advised not to apply for mRNA vaccine grants, and they expect any research into mRNA work to be canceled because it's now considered a dirty word by the modern NIH because they're all moving into anti-vax stuff. So this is pretty horrible because, as you know, mRNA is extremely promising. They even have an effective vaccine against cancer now,
Yeah,
and they're going to choke
yeah.
all that off. And there's another story which is a good story pointing out. This is from Technology Review, but they point out how important it is to fund basic research. And I used to do it. You know, basic research is always funded by the government because it discovers fundamental principles that do not immediately lead to a product. And they point out every major technological transformation in the US, from electric cars to Google to the iPhone, could trace its roots back to basic science research funded by the federal government. And the federal government is going to cut all that. And this is going to not only um, cause a brain drain as people flee to other countries, and people are beginning to flee. For example, France has invited a bunch of researchers to move there to get a less oppressive climate, but this will poison our advancement for decades to come. I mean, the basic research.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So we're failing to make investments that will profit us in the future. We're going to suffer in the future for this.
yeah. But our political system only favors the current and now for the most part.
Yeah, it is. Well, this is what people always said. The problem with democracy is because the people are stupid. They'll elect an idiot, and that's what happened. But and then
Yeah.
and Joe Rogan used to be a couple of years ago. He used to be kind of a liberal, but now he's just a complete conspiracy theory lunatic. He hosted a doctor called Suzanne Humphreys, uh, a nephrologist who co-wrote the self-published book Dissolving Illusions: Disease, Vaccine, and the Forgotten History, which falsely claims that vaccines do not account for the decline of smallpox and polio. Instead, it was sanitation and clean water that did that, and the vaccines are actually causing all those diseases. And Joe Rogan just totally accepts all this. And it is so extreme that even Elon Musk criticized Joe Rogan, saying, "No, vaccines are somewhat useful." So this is apparently really doctrine on the right. I know when Trump tried to say he was proud of making the COVID vaccine, the Republican crowds would like complain against him. That's the only time I ever saw him get booed. So it just seems to be the majority of Republicans now believe that vaccines don't work. I
Well,
guess they believe
yeah.
the Earth is round and there's gravity and oxygen. I don't know why they believe that stuff, but anyway, it's amazing.
So, the other conspiracy, I'll call it that, that's floating around is what's the number three killer or of people in the US?
Wow,
And
number
I have not
number
fact
one is
checked
like
this.
heart disease and cancer is pretty high. And gee, I guess
Yeah, I
I
think
don't know. I know in young people, gun deaths it is, but not average.
yeah. So the claim is that it's medical mistakes.
Oh, well, I doubt that, but I guess I don't really know. I don't
Yeah,
think
I
there's
don't
that
know
many medical
either,
mistakes.
but let's just go along with that.
Yeah,
Okay. So what's the number one cause of life extension or life expectancy increase?
I think it is clean water.
How about modern medicine?
Well, I think modern sanitation is much bigger. I think clean water ended like cholera and stuff,
It
and
did,
and
it
I think
did. But
childhood vaccination extended the lifespan enormously because many fewer kids died in
right.
infancy.
But both of those are a result of modern medicine.
You could argue whether clean water is modern medicine or just like infrastructure. But anyway, yeah.
Well, well, I'll tell you,
When it comes
there's
from a
the
germ theory disease, they actually understood that you needed to have
correct.
clean water. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And if you go to England, famously there was a pump handle that was removed from a pump
right.
that's still removed today.
Yeah,
And there was a big fight over that, that no, that's not the cause of
right,
cholera. I
right,
believe it was cholera that was being
right.
spread.
Because
Yeah.
people thought it was some bad air. They didn't know. The germ theory disease and like pasteurization were huge leaps forward. We
Yeah,
actually
yes,
understand how to
yes.
stop people from getting infected. They really didn't know before. They had this sort of sympathetic magic concept of contamination. Um,
Miasma,
yeah, that just, being
bad
around
air.
something, around like being around a sick person would make you sick, but nobody really
Yeah.
knew why.
Right. And yeah, and some people would get some diseases, not other,
Right.
and nobody put it together, which is
Yeah.
the basis. But my point is, if it hadn't been for modern medicine determining this,
Right.
our lives would be a lot shorter today.
Yes, absolutely. Primarily
Thank
because of
you.
infant mortality. Because
Yeah,
remember,
yeah,
it used to be that after you made it to adulthood, you had about the same chance. Like Socrates lived to about 70. It was just that half of them died in infancy. But if you made
yeah,
it
or
through that, you had a pretty good chance
yeah,
of living a normal life.
yeah. And childbirth was pretty traumatic.
It's still pretty bad in America just because they
It is.
neglected it. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
I
All right.
remember.
What else you
Yeah.
got?
All right. So, flight bookings between Canada and the US are down 70%. As you might imagine, nobody in Canada wants to come here anymore.
Wait. So that's you, Canada to US.
Yes, I think that's the main loss.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
because it's not safe for them down here, and also they hate our guts. I don't blame them. Uh, and law firms are scared to speak out. There's a good article on that talking about it. Trump has now targeted four major law firms, and he's passed executive orders specifically naming these individual law firms, saying they should be denied all government business, denied all security clearance, and not permitted
Yeah.
to attend federal government meetings. I'm surprised he has the power to do this because it's obviously just straight up extortion. In fact, he went to one of them and said, I'm going to make an executive order banning you from all this unless you give me $40 million of free legal services, which they did as the bribe to make him shut up. So this is like most everything Trump's done in the first 2 months. It's incredibly corrupt, incredibly illegal, and and everybody is just bowing down. Also, the universities, everybody just would prefer to capitulate and cower, hoping not to get hurt, and that's why he moves forward. Tyrants will move forward until somebody stops them. And these big law firms could push back, and the big universities could push back, but they don't, and therefore they create the disaster. Anyway, so that's why I'm out protesting because a lot of my students can't because they're immigrants, they have sick people at home. The people that can afford to need to push back. It's anyway.
Yeah.
So then I got a bunch of tech stories.
All
Um,
right. Do some text, and I kind of have an interesting one.
yeah, OpenAI has a new image generator, which people are very excited about. Now, the previous image generators worked by diffusion, so they would take pictures and gradually add more noise and train the model to remove the noise, and then they would start with completely random noise and remove the noise to make a picture. But the new ones are completely different. They take input image data directly as tokens, and then they move the tokens around the way LLMs move tokens to represent words. So it's very slow, but it's a major leap forward because it's much more flexible. It's also very computer intensive. And so that anyway, people say it produces much better art and people are going to town with it. For example, it can take any picture. You can just upload the picture and say, convert this picture to a different style. So people are making pictures in a style of like a certain kind of Japanese animation and stuff, and it's very good. So
Hmm.
it's a big leap forward, and people are getting real upset saying this can totally replace real artists. You can make really good looking stuff. The previous generation of stuff would fail in major ways. Like every AI generated picture, if there's like a sign or printing, it will just turn it into unreadable gibberish, like hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this new one can fix that.
Huh.
So So
Interesting.
that's interesting. And there's a company went and tested AI helpers to see if they can write an email. They asked it to write like a difficult apology email to a friend, and then they actually hired human consultants, communications consultants, to rate the output. And they found that Claude is by far the best, comparing it to Copilot and DeepSeek and Gemini and ChatGPT, which I've noticed Claude is very good, Anthropic's AI. And I thought I had one more. There's one more AI story that's pretty interesting. In America, as we've seen, everybody has this huge rollout of giant data centers for AI. Now they're beginning to wonder if that's really wise to make all that investment. I didn't know this also happened in China. There was a huge boom over the last couple of years of AI data centers, but it was passed through like government middle manager types who didn't understand it. So they funded and pushed poorly thought out data centers. So the main mistake they made is they put them all in rural areas next to a power plant so they could get cheap power. But now, since DeepSeek, the reasoning models have different requirements. So it's not just power you need. What you need is low latency. And for low latency, you need the data center to be near a tech hub so you can get low latency network communications. And so there's tons of data centers designed with a whole bunch of GPUs in China that are sitting unused because they really don't meet the needs of the modern AI. They rolled out too fast and built the wrong stuff.
I
So
see. I see.
yeah. Anyway,
Hmm.
what do you got?
All right. So, Sam, you've heard that 23andMe goes bankrupt, right?
Right.
It's gone bankrupt. Interestingly, I don't know how they did this, but the claim is they filed it on a Sunday. And I don't know how you can file court
Yeah.
documents on a Sunday, but that's not the story here.
Yeah.
The big story, though, is what's going to happen to your data.
Right.
And the government, California has different privacy laws versus at the federal level in other states.
Yeah.
And people are being encouraged to delete their data.
Yeah, but I'm surprised you can still do that. Usually, when you go into bankruptcy, it's like frozen in like an escrow account. I used to do this kind of work, and you can't
Yeah,
touch it because that's a valuable thing that must be sold, and the money has to go to the creditors.
that's an asset, right? And then the question happens, what happens if that data goes to the creditors or the highest purchaser?
Well, there was a famous case years ago when a toy company went bankrupt, and they had a database of everybody's children and what kind of how old they were and what toys they
Hmm.
liked. And I think it was Walt Disney bought it, and they actually got the data and then destroyed it because the backlash was so bad. They said, using this data will do us more harm than good.
But they didn't buy it for altruistic. They initially bought it
Right? They
to,
bought it to market products.
yeah,
But
yeah,
then
and
there
then
was a huge outroar saying this is
yeah,
invasion of
yeah,
our privacy. So they said, well, we'll just destroy it instead of using it.
yeah, yeah, and they're big enough to do that.
Yeah.
So, here's the question that I got for you. So we know what happened to Theranos data. Do you know what happened to
Was
that?
no, was there any data? Did they have
Yeah,
blood
oh
samples for
yeah.
everybody?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I did not know.
So, and that data was seized, and that was to be used for evidence. And why couldn't they use it for evidence? Do you know this?
No.
The reason is because it was encrypted, and the claim was we don't know what the password is to unencrypt the data.
Well, somebody at Theranos must have known.
Well, they never found the person that has it.
Well, maybe they just didn't want to give it. This happened to the San Francisco tech admin that went to jail for locking the people out of the network.
Yeah.
He had, when they arrested him, somebody, Gavin Newsom had to visit him twice in his jail cell to get the password to get in the routers. They
Terry, his name was Terry Childs.
Yeah, and they found a
Yeah.
hard drive. He had been
Yeah.
connected unauthorized and copied something, and that hard drive was encrypted. And they offered to drop all the charges if he would give them the password to that hard drive, and he refused and took 4 years in prison instead. And they never found it, and we don't know whatever's on that hard drive. He valued very much, or he was very afraid that people would find out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's just interesting that 23andMe could do the same thing. But the problem is you have all your backup tapes and, you have more
Well,
than one copy of the
if it was
data. Yes.
encrypted in the first place,
Yes.
you just say, "I forgot the password." Right? All right. If they encrypted it now, that would amount to destroying an asset. I'm sure that would be illegal.
And what are you going to do about it?
The person who encrypts it can be punished. Just like if you set fire to a building, it's destruction of something. I don't quite know exactly what crime it is, but I think it's some kind of crime to
Yeah.
destroy
Well,
something
here,
valuable that's about to be sold when you owe people money.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. But, it's just interesting that when Theranos was required to give the data,
Yeah.
they did give the data, but it was encrypted.
Yeah.
And apparently, we don't know, but you have to guess because
Well, then,
that would have been the smoking evidence against,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, then it has,
So
and also then it has zero value. This is like selling a car with no engine in it. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, yeah. So it's going
yeah.
to be interesting. So my question that I'm going to leave you with is, can you really delete your data?
Well, we know you can. We do it for data remnants purposes. Usually you do it by physically destroying the storage device is the safest way.
But can we really know as a
Oh,
customer?
well, no. You can go through some
Correct.
web form and sort of delete it, but you don't have any way to verify that.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
reminds me when Amazon EC2 first came out, people would rent virtual machines on the cloud, and somebody finally ran a forensic tool and found the last person's data on it, and it turned out they
Yeah.
hadn't been cleaning it. And so actually, I had a talk by Kyle Rankin that was very interesting, how to correctly erase your cloud machine. He had a way to boot to RAM not using the hard drive, mount it separately, erase it, and then verify that it's erased, and then disconnect. So you could, in fact, verify that you were deleting the contents of your cloud server, which is pretty
I
clever.
see. Yeah, very clever.
Yeah.
Very clever. All
All
right,
right.
what else you have for us?
So they tested Waymos to see how safe they are. Although Waymo
Yeah.
did this, so maybe they're lying, but they have pretty convincing evidence. They looked at something like 50 million miles driven in Waymos, and they found that they only got into 13 crashes sufficient to deploy the airbags. But if you look at what humans would have done, they would have had 78. So the Waymo is an 83% reduction in crashes compared to a human, which is what I always expected from the beginning. I always thought a robot would be better at driving than a human. Teslas apparently are not better. They take dangerous things, but Waymos are famously safe and slow and conservative and cautious. So I would hope they're safer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm glad to see that. And
Yeah.
there's one I'm not quite sure what to make out of. Quantum computing claims quantum supremacy again. With a 58 qubit quantum computer, they used it to generate random numbers. And then they used a supercomputer and they claim they have certified that they're random. And I don't quite understand how you can do that, but they put them through some kind of statistical test and concluded these numbers are really random, far more random than the pseudo-random stuff you make with deterministic computers. So anyway, they claim that the quantum computer makes better random numbers than the classical computer. Uh, and they've proven this somehow in a way I don't quite understand. But anyway, another quantum computing milestone as it gradually does more and more things that are of some value. It's still
I
nowhere
see.
near cracking RSA.
Yeah.
Still a
Yeah.
couple decades off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what else you got?
That's it for me this
Okay.
time,
Well,
this
I got a
round.
couple more. We did the China one. So there's a guy that finally quit using Windows. He's found cloud tools like Google Docs to replace it. And he said the one thing that was keeping him on Windows was Photoshop. But he found there's a cloud tool called Photop that replaces it, cloud-based service. So anyway, it's interesting. He has a list of all these cloud-based services he replaces all his Windows
So,
functional software with.
so he's a Windows user,
He has been, but more and more unhappy. And
but he uses Photoshop.
yep, on Windows.
So why couldn't he use Photoshop on Mac?
Oh, he probably could.
Oh,
I don't think but now he just wants to be, not tied to Windows. That's right. He could use it on a Mac. You're right. That'd be a lot of people could do. But anyway, he doesn't
yeah.
need, now he uses a cloud service instead.
So maybe is he attacking Windows or is he just saying I can move to the cloud?
Well, he said his statement is, I don't need Windows anymore. That's all. He does still use Windows to play games. But the point is, I think that Office productivity can be done in the cloud, which means you could be using Linux or anything.
Yeah, but Microsoft doesn't have Photoshop. That's
That's
Adobe.
right. That's right. But I mean, the reason he was using Windows is in order to run this software and I guess to get enough performance. But you're right. Most people would run Photoshop on a Mac. I don't think he was considering a Mac as the alternative. Anyway, also on
To me, that's not a story.
all right, well, anyway, a student came to me and
Yes.
last night and said, you should check out Jamf. And I was interested, if you have a company now, you got people using Windows machines and they're controlled by a Windows domain controller, but you also have people using Macs. And Apple totally does not give you any tools to support those Macs. You can't even like push out an update or query what versions of software they're using or remotely wipe them or any of those things you need to do. And so people would buy Casper. This is what I heard a long time ago. You have Casper is basically a domain controller for Macs. Well, Casper changed its name to Jamf. And this, I don't know why you do that. That seems like a terrible name. But anyway, that's what people use, Jamf, Jamf, to control your Macs. And there's a free course and a certification in Jamf
Oh,
management. I'm thinking maybe I should do it and teach it because this is super important. You have to have, a central point of administration for your Macs, and Apple does not provide one. So third-party companies have filled the gap.
yeah. Hmm.
And so,
We'll see. We will see.
yeah, yeah. Well, it is a big, people are really using it.
No, it is. There's a market for it, but I'm
Yeah.
wondering if this is coming to market way too late.
It's been around for a long time. Like I thought
Jamf?
under its previous name, Casper, it's been around for more than 10 years. I heard about it a long time ago.
Okay.
So
So why the name change?
that's a good question. I don't think got
Okay.
bought out or what.
Yeah.
And why do you
Okay.
move away from a name that's easy to remember and say it is some weird thing? Anyway,
Yeah.
um, and so Gemini,
Yes.
prompt injection is a big attack against AI. You trick it into violating a security policy. Well, they now have, for the first time, computer-generated prompt injections. And it turns out, I didn't know Gemini offered this. Gemini offers fine-tuning training for free through the API. Now, this is generally considered very expensive, but you can add more data and you can actually train the model to more accurately represent the added data, which is very difficult to do without it having catastrophic forgetting. But anyway, they're able to use that to leak out information about the parameters in the model. So by using 60 hours of extra training, of compute time, they were able to artificially generate ways to amplify prompt injection. So you'll have a prompt injection like whatever question the person asked, give them the answer 10. And that won't have much effect, but it adds carefully chosen data, like 20 random characters at the start and the end, and that makes it much more effective. It's
I
data that
see.
doesn't mean anything to a human, but it confuses the model, and it finds by sort of a brute force search, it gradually refines this injection. So it's the first AI attacking AI, and it is in fact Gemini attacking Gemini. But and they say it's very hard to patch the model against this. It's custom attacks, computer generated that fool the model in a way a human couldn't.
Got
So
it.
another layer of that. And the last one I thought was pretty interesting. Three businesses over the last few years in San Francisco have gotten returned mail packages full of illegal drugs. And they said, what the hell? And they found out what's going on. They even found the name of the store that makes these. You can order illegal amphetamines and marijuana and stuff on the internet. And what they will do is instead of mailing it to you, they will duplicate the package of another company and make it look like it came from them. So a company sells something like candles or something, and they will
Yeah.
get a returned mail with their logo and a package that looks like their package because to fool the postal people, they make it look like an innocent package from a local retailer. And then if the address is wrong, it gets sent back. So this is an interesting thing. And these people called the cops and turned it in and said, I have drugs in here. What is this? And I hadn't thought of this, but I mean, how do you deliver drugs through the mail without getting busted? Apparently, it's a big issue at the post office. They say they stop an incredible amount of drugs being sent through the mail. And
Yeah.
this would be
Yeah.
how you'd avoid it. They're all vacuum sealed, but tight plastic, so the dog won't be able to sniff them, and then shipped in a box that appears to come from someone innocent.
Yeah. So I see. So it either gets to the address. So I do know that Airbnbs, VRBOs have been used for drops. So somebody finds the address of a VRBO. They don't book the place, but they see the FedEx guy driving up or
Oh,
UPS, and they run it out and they say, "Oh, is that my package?" And the
Oh,
UPS driver goes, yeah, and maybe they look for a driver's license, the name matches, and they run off with the drugs, and that way it's kind of anonymous, if you will.
oh, okay. Yeah.
And I guess what you're saying is that it does get to the address and maybe returned, or it's a
Right.
incorrect address and
Right.
returned.
Right.
And
So probably
the
just a small percentage of them have a bad
yeah,
address,
yeah,
but then they'll
yeah,
get returned back to the store.
that didn't ship it. So I will tell you this. I actually have it right here. I have a check here.
Ah,
You can't see it. I
it's
got this
blurry.
years ago,
Yeah.
and this is for roughly $3,000. And it was, the Nigerian or Indian scam where they send me a fake check.
Oh,
I'm supposed to go deposit it, take some money out. They paid me too much, so I send them money back, and then the check is completely bogus.
this reminds me of Publishers Clearinghouse would send you a check for $1 million.
I got those calls. I won in the last 5 years at least 10 times.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
still waiting for what was his name? Ed McMahon to show up at
yeah,
my door.
yeah. It used to be the Irish lottery. You get emails saying you won the Irish lottery.
Is there an Irish lottery?
I don't
We
know.
don't know.
I guess there
Anyway,
probably is.
what the reason I'm bringing up this check is it's interesting. The way I got it was sent um, by somebody, and this I think has been solved, who is able to produce UPS labels.
Oh,
And so they went in, and so they didn't even pay for the postage
yeah. Well, I
to
guess that's
overnight.
true.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember years ago somebody figured out how to clone the cards that they gave you money at the copy shop, Kinko's. Those just had like a dollar amount was just in the clear on them, so you could just use a magnetic writer and give yourself more money. And I'm guessing those UPS labels probably were some simple system at first where you could just decode it and print a label.
yeah, yeah. And the label is good. It looked legitimate. It was from a company in San Francisco, or
Yeah,
I should say, an address in San Francisco.
yeah.
Different company name than the actual company. BART tickets. This is kind of an interesting hack since you bring up the magnetic strip. BART tickets, the old ones, used to be people would take a razor blade, cut them into fifths, and you could get five times the value, or four
Oh, yeah.
times the value, I guess.
Well, now they're MyFair. I remember the big hack of MyFair. And
I don't know who's using that.
well, everybody's pretty much using MyFair, and there was MIT students found a way to hack it, but it doesn't store the value on the card anymore. It just stores like an identifier, and
Yeah,
like a
okay.
domain controller kind of thing that recognizes each card. So the value's not in there directly, but they
Yeah.
found various hacks were available, at least in the older version of MyFair.
Yeah, some about 10 years ago, I have a picture of a BART ticket machine. Maybe it was 12 years, 15 years ago. That was running Windows 2000.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember when I went to New Zealand, the airport was running Windows NT 3.51 to sell the tickets.
What?
And I was thinking, man, any of my students could hack this thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's like
Interesting.
Oracle running something that hasn't been updated in 14 years.
Yeah, I got it. I got it. All right.
Yep.
Any more, or is that for
I think
you?
that's it. So
That's it.
I guess we'll have another one on Tuesday.
Yeah. So Sam,
Yeah.
we got to find some really good stories for April Fool's Day.
Oh, well. I've never
I
paid.
think we find that every day.
Well, yeah, I think I never pay attention to holidays, but you're right. One thing about it is April Fool's, you have to watch and see if the stories are fake. Especially in the last few years, I unable to tell reality from truth. It seems like every day I read a story and I say that's got to be bogus, and it turns out to be true. I can't tell like the Onion from the New York Times anymore.
The Onion is very good, aren't they?
And reality is so crazy. It seems like a satire.
Yeah.
This is the famous quote, truth is stranger than fiction. And it really seems to be true lately. Before Trump, I don't think it was this true. But now outrageous things happen every couple of days that just seem unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. That's
Huh.
it.
Yeah, and you're seeing those with videos.
Oh, yeah. Now we're going to see a lot more deep fake videos
We're
and stuff,
seeing,
deep fake
yeah.
pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And they are quite good, some of the videos that I've seen, and I've had to question whether they're real or not. And I just saw one where there were two high school kids that were about ready to fight, and you see a garbage can, plastic garbage can, just kind of come out of nowhere. And the guy that's instigating the fight, it falls on his head. And the other guy who is going to lose the fight kind of walks away, and that's the end of the video. And now I'm realizing it's a good video, but yeah, it's got to be fake.
Yeah,
To
I think.
throw, I could not, it's one of those rubber garbage cans, Rubbermaid garbage cans.
Yeah.
I could not throw that like that with any accuracy.
It's going to be tough. That's why they're
Yeah,
making these laws to try to force you to label the AI generated content. But as far as I can tell, that's not happening yet.
yeah, yeah. All
All right.
right, Sam, we'll see you on April Fool's Day. No joke.
Okay.